Hi there, this is the Athletic FC podcast. It's the weekend preview and it is match day 38. I'm Adam Leventhal, and with me for this final weekend preview of the season is Tim Spiers. Are you excited for the final day?
I haven't really thought about it until just now.
Oh.
But yeah, I guess so. Yeah, last day's always fun, isn't it?
It should be.
Something unexpected always happens, right? Always. Not necessarily result-wise, but
Yeah.
but you know,
Like a twist in the, they've scored.
bit of jeopardy.
Or bit
we
of,
know you like a bit of jeopardy.
yeah, you want jeopardy, don't you? John Jeopardy Mackenzie is here as well. How are you?
Yeah, good. Also looking forward to the end of the season, but I guess a big part of my job is like noticing things, and by the end of the season there's much less to notice than at the beginning, so I'm ready for a reset over the summer, and then we can get back to it next season.
I know it only sort of is alluded to in football, and they say teams are on the beach, but you're in the studio in shorts. It doesn't often happen that a pundit or an expert is on the beach.
I'm on the beach, yeah. I've got my bath towel out nice and early. It's been quite nice weather recently, actually. I've just come back from holidays, so I'm in the holiday spirit.
Yeah, sunshine vibes, as always. We're going to be looking at the title, obviously the European race as well, and we're going to be having our alternative awards. It is the final fixture formation of the season.
How exciting.
It really is, because, I mean, I didn't know how to sort of set it up, but I think there is only one way that you can. You know, there are often games on a Friday and a Saturday and a Monday. So the fixture formation for this week is a 0-0-10-0.
That'd be tricky to play through, that would.
It would be, wouldn't it?
But once you got through, you'd think there's a lot of space in behind.
You've started tweeting this as well, I noticed recently. What did you say the
All
other day?
season.
It's a 9-1-1er or something like that.
All season. It's
so
a fixture
cringe.
formation. I think it educates. Lets people know the sort of the cadence of their games over the weekend. Let's deal with all of those 10 games on Sunday, all kicking off at 4:00. The focus is obviously going to be firmly on the title race. Manchester City against West Ham and Arsenal against Everton. We know the Champions League places are sorted. Obviously, City, Arsenal, Liverpool and Aston Villa. Many congratulations to them. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. Europa and Conference League picture is still to be nailed down, and that is applicable to these games. Sheffield United against Spurs in 5th. Chelsea are in 6th. They're up against Bournemouth. Brentford play 7th place Newcastle. And then Brighton play Man United, who are down in 8th. Then at the bottom, no real jeopardy here. 18th placed Luton. Their relegation is all but confirmed. They are 3 points behind Nottingham Forest in 17th. But their goal difference is 12 worse off. So we need quite a swing there as Luton play Fulham. Forest would need to lose heavily at Burnley as well. And then elsewhere, we've got Liverpool against Wolves. It's always Liverpool-Wolves, isn't it? On the
Third time in 6 years, I think.
It's weird, isn't it? But probably more important than that, it is Jurgen Klopp's final match in charge of Liverpool. And then we have Crystal Palace against Aston Villa. We are going to start talking about the title race. So it is down to the final day, this title race, for only the 10th time in the Premier League. And unfortunately for Arsenal fans, in each of the 9 previous seasons, the team who started top win the league. But you never know. You never know what's going to happen, right? Yeah? No? Okay. So as it stands, City 2 points above Arsenal. They play West Ham at the Etihad. Then Arsenal are playing Everton at the Emirates. Goal difference could technically come into play. Arsenal have a 1-goal advantage. So were City to draw and Arsenal win, the title would be going to North London. The problem is City very rarely lose. The last time they lost in the Premier League, it was December against Villa. The last time they lost at home was November 2022. That was against Brentford, and that was the only game that they've lost at home in the last 2 seasons.
Yeah, but they don't have to lose, you know?
No, they don't have to.
It's very unlikely that
You're
they'll
right.
lose, I think. More relevant would be draw statistics.
Okay, fine.
go.
You've got the draw statistics to hand, have you? So the last time they drew at home was?
A few months ago.
Yeah.
Yes,
You've made
2 months ago.
Right, yeah.
At home to Arsenal.
Yeah.
And then the Chelsea one they had, which was in February, which was 1-1.
Yeah.
Crystal Palace in December, 2-2 at home.
Mm-hmm.
3-3 at home to Spurs.
Mm-hmm.
And 1-1 at home to Liverpool. That's 5 home draws this season.
So there you go. That is interesting, isn't it? But are they going to draw against West Ham? That's the question, John.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to see that happening, really, isn't it? I think we've already talked about what it's like to be on the beach, and West Ham very much in that position, which isn't to say, of course, that professional footballers don't take their task seriously, but there's obviously a lot more at stake for Manchester City than for West Ham. And I think West Ham, their form has dropped in the second half of the season. Manchester City's form has only got better. So yeah, I think you're talking. I've got the Opta supercomputer saying 84% chance of the title going to Manchester City. So
because West Ham's form, it's not great, is it? 2 wins out of their last 10. They've beaten sort of flat track bully teams like Wolves away, Luton at home. City won the reverse 3-1 against West Ham. Is there any case for West Ham being difficult for City to face at home? I'm just trying to sort of see if there's anything there.
There's more of a case for final day nerves, right?
And we saw some nerves against Spurs, didn't we?
We did. I thought they were well. I thought they were. I messaged someone at half time saying you can't exactly say they're there for the taking, but it's as good as there for the taking as City get. And of course, a couple of final day title deciders where City have been at home, it has been very nervous. Obviously, there was the famous QPR one many, many years ago. Not really relevant now because it's so long ago. But more relevant was the Villa game, right? 2 years ago when they were 2-0 down to Villa, who were 14th that year, not a good team. So yeah, they will be nervous. They will be nervous. They are human beings who will be nervous. And they might find it difficult to play with freedom early on, I guess. They might be a bit uptight. Maybe a few nervous noises in the crowd. And West Ham will be the opposite. They will play with complete freedom. It's an absolute free hit. So who knows? If West Ham then take advantage of that nervousness and edginess and tightness and score the first goal, then yeah, there's a game on. All that being said, if West Ham were 2-0 up after 70 minutes, I would still back Man City to win that match. Because that's just what they do, right?
Do you think it's... And I hate to be sort of unfair to Arsenal, because obviously they've been waiting for quite a long time to win the title. Do you think it's more likely that Arsenal lose against Everton than City slip up in any way, shape or form against West Ham? Because you look at Everton's form, 5 wins out of their last 8. They've only lost 1 out of those games, and that was a heavy defeat, random game against Chelsea. And aside from that, they've only conceded 2 goals in draws against Newcastle and Luton. So they've got the tougher opposition, haven't they?
Well, going back to the Opta supercomputer.
Oh, yes.
Which is a phrase that I hate anyway. It is 84%, but if you actually look at the games themselves, yeah, Arsenal are slightly lower odds to win than Man City are. So that's what the computer's saying. But yeah, it's...
You're a bit like a computer, though, aren't you?
Not at all,
no?
I don't think, no.
Don't you, like digits? Do they sort of...
I mean, everything we're talking about here is the reality of every elite football game, right? Is that there's going to be usually a big favourite, and there's always the possibility they can lose. The stuff that Tim's just said about Man City up against West Ham, you could say the same about Arsenal against Everton. I think Arsenal have definitely been the form team this season. It's felt as though they've generally been the team that you would expect to win their games. Manchester City have had a weird season, but they've sort of rolled in the last few games. So I guess that's worth taking into account. But as I see it, it's one of those things. It's 2 very similar games. The results could go either way. And I suppose that's why football is so exciting. But in the Premier League now, you just have to win every game, right? And at the moment, it looks like Man City are going to do exactly that. Yeah, I'm much less higher on data than a lot of people think. I think data is interesting, but a lot of the time, I mean, what does that data tell us? Not a lot, really. Right? It tells us that Man City are the favourites, and that's because they're 2 points ahead. And yeah, and in the games themselves, it's like, what's the difference between Arsenal being 61% likely to win versus Man City 75% likely to win? It's based on like a few metrics to do with team strength, attacking and defending, and it all boils out in the wash. But like, anything could happen here, and that's good. It's good to have I think it's only the 10th time in the history of the Premier League for us to have a final day.
The emotion of the day. I know you've said that City are going to be nervous. Let's switch on to the Arsenal side of things. And it should be, whatever happens, obviously Arsenal will want to win to make sure that they keep their side of the bargain, as Mikel Arteta has said. But it should be a day of celebration for Arsenal, whatever happens, shouldn't it?
It depends how it happens on the day and how the game evolves on the day. Because if City go into the 90th minute still drawing and then they get a last minute winner, then no, it's not going to feel like a celebration at Arsenal. You know what I mean? But I think the vast majority of Arsenal fans will head to the Emirates on Sunday not expecting to win the title. So therefore, City will probably win their match. And yeah, like it did at the end of last season and the season before, Arsenal will celebrate their improvement and another good season and sort of looking ahead to the future and maybe hitting top spot next year if they don't this year.
I think it will depend on how the games unfold as well. If City go 2-0 up in 20 minutes, then I think it will be a bit more of a party atmosphere at the Emirates. It'll just be like, okay, whatever, not going to... But if it, like you said before, there's a bit of jeopardy and it's close. I mean, it felt like that way in the Spurs game, right, with the Son miss.
Yeah.
That's the fine margins. That's how close it comes. So, yeah, it can happen if that goes in, as Pep Guardiola admitted. Arsenal probably win the league. And so, yeah, I think if the game is that fine margin obvious, or if City just steamroller and there's no pressure, then I guess it will change the mood of the fans, right?
Let's get on to the predictions. And I'm not going to ask you just for straight score predictions. I'm going to ask you first for who you want to win the title. John?
What kind of question is that?
Well, it's a pretty straight one, isn't it? Who would you like to win the title? Because some people will see this differently. They will go, I would like to see Manchester City do it because it's never been done before. They are the best team, etc., etc. Some people will look at it and go, it would just be nice to have someone else winning it for whatever reason.
I think both of those things are true, right? I'm very much the sort of person who likes these kind of big things happening that are very hard to achieve and probably won't be achieved if it's not done. So like Leverkusen, for example, them going unbeaten this season would be incredible. And it means that I'm in a scenario where you go to the DFB Pokal where they're playing against Kaiserslautern.
Yeah.
And you're like, I want Leverkusen to beat Kaiserslautern. Like, it's a much better story the other way round. But in terms of the monumentous achievement of a club in the modern day actually going through a whole season unbeaten and winning 3 tournaments off the back of it is remarkable. So, yeah, on the one hand, you know, the idea of the first team to win 4 in a row is impressive. I think that'd be a very unpopular opinion because people are fed up of Man City now. But I think people undervalue the impact that Guardiola's had on the Premier League. The reason why the Premier League is what it is now is in large part down to him, regardless of the moral scruples that we might have about it on the side. And I think that's important, right? The reason why Arsenal are where they are now is in part due to the fact that, one, Pep Guardiola has set the bar so high, but two, you know, Mikel Arteta has come through the Pep Guardiola school of coaching, and I think as a result of that has set Arsenal up to be in a really good position going forward.
If Pep Guardiola had been installed at Arsenal at the same time as Mikel Arteta, or at the same time as he was at Manchester City, would he have had as much success, do you think, because it's him rather than the setup?
Yeah, and I think this is worth saying. I think people like to throw the money thing around, and I think that's a completely valid criticism, but you can have money and that doesn't guarantee that you're going to be able to win the league in the way that he's done. And the fact of the matter is that since Pep Guardiola has been in the Premier League, his team have been the best team. Every season, even the seasons when they've lost, the underlying numbers suggest that they've been the team to beat. So not only do you have to be an incredible team to beat them, you also have to hope that they drop off a little bit in order to catch them. And I think it's that makes him a very annoying figure, right? Because it's just like he's done it again. But it also raises the standard so high that the quality of the product that is on offer now in the Premier League is remarkable. And I say that all the way down the table. We're talking about coaches at the bottom of the table now who are, you know, if you look, I had a look the other day 10 years ago, and you look at the coaches in the Premier League, and you know, it's the usual suspects. Yeah, a lot of British coaches who now aren't even coaching anymore. You look at it now, and you've got coaches like Oliver Glasner coming in and pulling Palace up the table. Andoni Iraola, someone we've talked a lot about this season. the quality of the Premier League from a tactical point of view is sky high, and I think a lot of that's to do with Pep Guardiola. But I haven't answered your question, and I thought I did a pretty good job of sidestepping that, didn't I? Who do I want to win?
Okay, so you want City to win?
I'm
yes
pretty
or no?
I'm pretty neutral. I don't mind if either team wins. To be honest, I think
that's fine.
Yeah.
Who do you want to win?
Arsenal.
You want Arsenal to win? Okay, fine.
I live near to Arsenal territory, so I'm the street party and
But you've
Finsbury
been
Park.
caught up in the emotion. They're a very sort of emotional. They've found an identity. Whether anyone looking from the outside think, it's a bit sort of. You should be happy. You should be happy for Arsenal for finding their identity and their
I feel
fun
like
feeling at the Emirates.
Done it in
they've
the right.
It. They've
done it in the right way, and a way that a lot of fans of a lot of clubs can kind of relate to and say, okay, if we had a bit more money, then maybe we could do this. Do you know what I mean?
All of the positive things I said about Pep Guardiola, you could apply to Mikel Arteta. It's really impressive what he's done. The improvement that Arsenal have gone through in the last few seasons is remarkable. And they I think legitimately mounted a charge that on City that will continue for the next few seasons, and it will make Pep Guardiola sweat, which I don't think many coaches have done in his time as well. So yeah, really impressive.
So it's a big congratulations to Aston Villa, who, by virtue of Manchester City beating Spurs this midweek, they have secured Champions League football. But there are places in the Europa League and the Conference League which are still undecided. They are up for grabs now. Spurs currently occupy 5th with 63 points. Chelsea are right behind them in 6th with 60 points. Newcastle in 7th on 57 points, with Manchester United in 8th, also on 57 points. Few permutations to just be au fait with as you prepare for this weekend. If you manage to recite all of this, I'll be very impressed. We're not going to go through what each result means, but 5th place is guaranteed a Europa League spot, but there is the complication of the FA Cup final and the winner getting a Europa League spot. Obviously, City won't need it, but if Manchester United get it, then that does change things. If City win the Cup, 6th gets Europa League, 7th gets the Conference. If United win, they get the second Europa League spot regardless of their league finish, and then 6th will be in the Europa League Conference. He did have sort of quite a laid-back, relaxed feel about him when he was asked about how important is it to finish in the Champions League places. Yeah. Now he was sort of, it doesn't really matter. We're building something here. So is he sort of part of the problem himself? There's a little bit.
There's a slight contradiction.
There is, isn't there?
But he's not annoyed at Spurs fans not winning the game for the Champions League. It's just like win any game at all costs, right? Spurs as a club. If we judge a club on trophies being success, then Spurs are specialists in failure, basically.
That's a very good saying.
Yeah,
where did you get that?
Did you come up with that yourself?
Very good. A specialist in failure. Well done. Yeah.
Nice.
So their last league title predates colour television and the Beatles. Their last FA Cup victory predates the Premier League. They don't win anything. So I can see exactly why he wants to change the whole culture of that club. But then I guess from the fans' point of view, because they've been starved of that success, then they can only go for small wins, right, and petty victories here or there. And having covered the club, for sort of 12 months, they do have a massive inferiority complex about Arsenal. Like, it's huge. It's not a two-way rivalry. I think Arsenal mostly just laugh at Spurs, but Spurs continuously compare themselves to Arsenal. So I can see why they would be desperate for Arsenal to not win the league title. I see it. I could never imagine going to a Wolves game and wanting Wolves to lose. However...
Imagine if you did, though. It'd be great, wouldn't it?
But we need to take the Spurs factor into account. It's many, many, many years of failure, and they're... small wins where they can get it, and this was one for them. Does
Ange change that? Can Ange change that?
It isn't. I don't know. For me, like, a lot of this comes down to the fact that we talk about fandom in such a flat way. It's just kind of like, you should do this, you shouldn't do that, and it's so multi-layered. Like, what fans say when they say we wanted to lose is on one level, But the reality of actually losing, that Spurs fans will have not liked losing that game. They will have come out being like, we wanted to win and we didn't. But there's another level, which is here's the context that allows us to be okay with it in a different way. And I feel
it seemed as if they were okay with it during the game.
Yeah.
Yes, they played well and they were a better team in the first half. They obviously had a big chance late on with Son, and that could have changed the whole dynamic, etc., etc. But it did have a weird feeling about it. And you just thought, hang on a minute. Like you said earlier on, they were sort of City there for the taking. Spurs were on top. If they had been full throttle, the whole atmosphere, like it has been at different times, it could have been very different.
With football fandom, that's almost my point. It is a complex thing. It's never, an easy, this is the only way things should be. People have different levels of addiction to their club, and there'll be some people in that stadium who are more involved than others, and there'll be some people in that stadium who are visiting to watch a certain player, or there's so many different reasons why you watch football and you enjoy them. And I just think that the base level thing here should be you can enjoy football however you want. Now there's other levels there that we need to talk about, one of which is this idea that Spurs fans having a quote-unquote loser mentality impacts their ability to win in the long run. I'm not convinced that that's necessarily true. I don't think if you think that your fans are contributing to your club not being successful through the years, I think this is a big stretch. I think the context of this game itself was that did losing that game mean they didn't get Champions League? Not really. What meant contributing to them not getting Champions League, because there's been plenty of times when it's been well within their hands, has been them dropping silly points against smaller clubs. And I don't think that's the fault of the fans having this attitude in one game. So I just think it's a lot more complicated. And I think that I get why Postecoglou is annoyed, but I also think you have to be respectful of the traditions of the club that you're coming to, and be aware of that. I know that he is, but and I know that I can see why he'd be frustrated, because he will want to win every game. But I also don't think that this is the reason why Spurs haven't been successful from a.
Is he using it to paper over the cracks a little bit?
I don't think deliberately. I think he really believes what he says. But I would just add to John's point. There's nothing worse than the media in particular telling fans how to support their own club. Yeah. I think criticism is fine. It's always weirdly quite atmosphere, but to tell fans how to support their club, anybody really, it's
okay. But two things: would you do the Poznan? Would you wear a City shirt?
Yeah, I did notice a lot of light blue Spurs away tops in that moment.
It's a bit. I mean. Anyway,
it
doesn't matter now.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter now.
And you hope
for Spurs.
Like I said, Spurs are a very particular football club, very particular case.
And they have had, relatively speaking, they were sort of bumping along for a while, and then when Poch came in, he gave them an uplift. So in terms of the context of a team going on and winning the title, there aren't that many that break through. So they have had an uplift. They have come closer than they were before. So maybe...
But you've got to look at the top. The same guys run the club for 20 years now and prioritise the stadium and prioritise maybe fourth over winning a trophy. So that does drip down. It does drip down to dressing rooms as well. You say about losing mentality. I think that's one of the things that Ange noticed when he came in last summer, that a lot of players had sort of settled for second best and maybe just didn't have that winning mentality or that drive to go and win a title.
Make comments about not being backed in the market and stuff as well, right? So, and it does all come down to money, right? And I think that's why I feel a little bit uncomfortable, sort of like pointing the finger at the fans in particular, because I think the fans, one, are probably the least. The agents in all of this who have the least impact. Okay, yes, if they'd have cheered harder in the game, then maybe they would have won. I don't know, but it's not their responsibility that the club has, as Tim says, been run as we are. We are being run on a bit of a shoestring, relatively speaking, for the level of club that we are, and so it just feels a little bit to me like punching down to call out the fans in particular. So,
all right, but don't do the Poznan. Right, let's talk about Chelsea. What a resurgence they've had. Obviously, there's been someone in this room that's obviously said that it's been going to plan at Chelsea, and it was always going to turn.
What, the guy who said Burnley were going to stay up?
Always going to turn up. Well, they blew it. It wasn't my problem. They had an opportunity to do it.
So you're taking credit for Chelsea, but not claiming for Burnley.
Yes. Yeah. They had another impressive win against Brighton. They could actually catch Spurs in fifth, because it's only a swing on goal difference, and their goal difference is actually better. But I suppose the sort
Spurs
of
would have to lose to Sheffield United.
They would have to lose to Room 101 Sheffield United, which probably isn't going to happen. But just a quick word on Chelsea, finishing sixth, solid season for Poch, but he doesn't sound completely convinced that this summer isn't going to bring massive change, and it could include him, couldn't it?
Yeah, I'm seeing tweets about how he's building something special and there's something stirring here. I don't know. It's only been a few games. Let's just calm down.
Yeah, okay.
What they do in the summer is going to be really important. He says it's not his team yet. Does that mean another summer of wholesale change and spending an awful lot of money? I think that's the last thing they need, to be honest. They've got a very young team that seems to be, there are signs there are shoots that it's growing. So he needs to continue with that next season. I'm just going to quickly take you back in time.
Oh, yeah, go on.
April the 7th, when Spurs beat Nottingham Forest to go fourth with 60 points, 7 games to go. That same weekend, Chelsea couldn't beat Sheffield United away. So Spurs had 60 points, Chelsea had 45 points that day. They were 15 behind Spurs with 7 to go. And like you say, they could overtake them this weekend, which is interesting, isn't it?
It is interesting. And also, if you then compare Spurs' end of the season, if they fail to beat Sheffield United, the team that they will have only beaten in the run-in is Burnley. And as I've been saying all season, they've been gone for ages. Let's switch to Manchester United, because we obviously mentioned there may well be huge change at Chelsea, as per usual. There may well be huge change at Manchester United. Bruno Fernandes has sort of been having his weird end-of-season interview where he said, the club will need to want me if I'm going to stay, etc., etc. We had Erik ten Hag doing his very best to rouse a crowd at Old Trafford after the victory against Newcastle. They've still got the FA Cup final. Who's more important to Manchester United, Erik ten Hag or Bruno Fernandes, or not really both?
Well, I mean,
not really either.
Bruno Fernandes, both from
is he, though?
A financial point of view, and I think.
Would you build, and if Erik ten Hag was to leave, would you build your team around Bruno Fernandes?
No, I wouldn't. But I also don't.
Would you sell him and reinvest the money?
Yes, I think I feel bad saying that, because is Bruno Fernandes Manchester United's most creative player, their best attacking player? Almost certainly. Give or take, Garnacho's been fantastic this season. But yeah, he's the guy who gets them results when they don't deserve results. However, there's an argument to be made that the reason why they are a team that needs to get results in that manner is because they have Bruno Fernandes. And I think the issues that Manchester United have had perennially has been with control. And Bruno Fernandes is just not a control player. He is a super creative, just an incredible, viewer of the game who can see things that no one else can see. But he can't keep the ball. And I think as a result of that, it sort of locks you into playing the way that they've been playing for the last 10 years. And it hasn't been good enough in the eyes of the fans and the pundits and the board and the owners. So why would you build your team around a guy who, in particular, I think, who actually sort of causes that snowball effect to happen?
More trouble than he's worth.
Yeah, I think so. Saying? Yeah, but again, I want to caveat that with saying, he is the solution a lot of the time.
So on Tuesday, we are going to be having our official Athletic Awards show, which is going to be on X at 5:00 on Tuesday, British summertime, if you're watching around the world. So we will have the serious awards. We are going to have an alternative awards. Okay, so let's just rattle through some of these categories. And I have to start with Tim for our first category, which is the worst VAR decision. They're going to cause all of the Premier League teams to vote on whether to scrap VAR. It was a great scoop from David Ornstein.
Yeah. I don't know the way you phrased it. What was it going to say? Football is what you meant to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where do you stand on this? Because I'm a bit. I think it's a good thing in terms of having a healthy debate. I think scrapping VAR would be such a backward step. What do you think?
It's a bit crusade-y, isn't it? And I think it's clearly not going to happen. Wolves need to, if they're going to put forward this motion and ask everyone to vote on it, they need to put forward an alternative, because VAR is not going anywhere. We need to make use of technology. It's the way that it's been used by the inept officials that's made it such a boring talking point every single week for the whole season. So yeah, I don't think it'll get voted through. I think you're right. It's good that the tide is turning because it needs to turn, but this isn't the way to do it.
Okay. So what is the worst VAR decision?
Obviously, the Liverpool Spurs one is the worst one.
Yeah.
But that was sort of like, a brain fade, right?
Yeah.
It was a
That's miscommunication.
But the actual worst one where someone's taken time to study and thought, no way is that a foul. I'll take you back to the opening weekend of the season.
I thought you would.
Come on. It's like, I'm still annoyed. It's getting me annoyed
who did
right now.
Onana punch?
Onana on Kalajic, I think it was.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was assault. If you did that in the street, you'd be locked up, banged up.
Brilliant.
He would.
Yeah, he would.
He would.
But he wasn't.
It's still really annoying.
Yeah, okay. So right at the beginning of the season, can you think of a worse VAR decision?
Coventry Man United one was quite annoying, wasn't it?
Oh, yes.
That's probably correct.
But let's keep it Premier League.
Keep it Premier League. Yeah, I mean, it's the Liverpool one. Like that's egregious. It's not... And that's because the protocol has been messed up, right? I think a lot of people don't understand VAR. I think people think that it should be fail-safe, and it's been designed in such a way as to retain referees on field authority. And so you have to have enough evidence to overturn things. And the frustration for myself and a lot of other fans is that when it comes to the offside rule, it's like super fine line stuff where you're like, who cares? Did they get an advantage from that? No.
But we should get semi-automated.
Yeah,
offside
sure. But like even still, it's like who genuinely who cares if you've got like a toe over the line? You've not benefited from that really, right? In terms of the spirit of the law, rather.
But
than
it needs
the
to have some sort. You can't
Sure.
be slightly offside or slightly onside.
No, of course. But I think the reason why that then becomes a problem is because when it comes to then fouls in the box, usually VAR is much harder to actually produce overturned decisions. So you almost like I can think of barely any this season where a player goes down, the referee says not a penalty, then it's overturned and given, or vice versa. And that's because they're then using the argument that you need to have enough evidence that it was a clear and obvious error, which I mean it's an ephemeral concept anyway. But generally speaking, you're going to say, well, the referee made the best decision they could in that moment. And so you have these two categories of like the letter of the law on one side and then the spirit of the law on the other. It takes time, it's confusing, it doesn't seem to really give us any benefit. And as a fan of a team who've played in the Championship this season, where there isn't VAR, I genuinely don't think that a slight uptick in, as was the words that Wolves used, a slight improvement in accuracy actually makes up for what is lost in terms of the enjoyment and the flow of the game. So I'm pretty on the fence about it, like one way or the other, but I don't think that VAR has offered what it promised. And I think that's what's happening now, is that people are realising, well, we didn't really think about the ramifications of implementing this, and maybe it was okay before. The problem I have with it's the people who use it argument is that, like, where are the people who've been ever good at using VAR? I just think it's a bit of a pipe
train
dream,
whoever
right?
it is, whether they're former players or they're officials or they're pundits or they're people off the street,
trained,
just train
right?
them better.
But I don't know. I just don't think that. I don't think that happens. I think the reason why it's complicated is because it is human people making the decisions on the basis of the technology, and I think that's VAR means video assistant referee. It doesn't mean the technology. It means the guy who looks at the cameras and watches it back. And
if only more referees were computer people, like exactly, they would be fine.
Exactly. We don't need humans. We need robots. Right. So we've sort of, we've had our VAR.
That one, yeah,
we've nailed that one down. That was like a really bad VAR check, wasn't it? We don't really know what the answer was. Most underrated manager of the year?
I would say Marco Silva, who just keeps Fulham going, no danger of relegation, play good football, very good. Yeah,
14th, safe, no problem. Underrated?
Well, I guess at the beginning of the season, probably Andoni Areola.
Yeah.
Well, I'll not get on my hobby horse about that.
No.
It's tough, isn't it? Because like almost all of the people that we are going to say are underrated probably are rated, depending on how they're doing. So I'm not going to offer anyone else, but I think Areola's been impressive. It's been nice to see Oliver Glasner turning around Crystal Palace. Marco Silva, as you say. A lot of these mid-table coaches who don't have a huge amount to work with, but who can make the whole greater than the sum of its parts.
And as we've seen, teams do get sucked in that are established Premier League teams into relegation scraps, and many of those teams, like Wolves, beginning of the season, uncertain who knew what was going to happen. Fulham potentially, Palace the same, Bournemouth probably were going to be in that mix, but they are safe.
Maybe I've got a controversial one here. Maybe Vincent Kompany, underrated coach. Now, not in terms of the performances that they've had, but I suspect he's a much better coach than people realise.
Yeah, maybe that's a good one. Because we will see how good he is when he goes to a team that has the potential to stay in the Premier League.
So, for example, like Chelsea, if they were to need a new manager, someone like Vincent Kompany, he coaches elite tactics at a team where they don't have elite players.
Overrated?
Dare I say, one Premier League title, Jurgen Klopp. This sort of goes back to John's earlier point about what it means to be a Liverpool fan and have Klopp as your manager. Right, I totally get that. But from an outsider's point of view, he's underachieved.
Yeah, well, that's a good one. I like that. Yeah. John?
I mean, I totally disagree with that, but...
Why?
Because I think that what Klopp has achieved is remarkable, and no one came anywhere near Guardiola apart from him.
Hang on a minute. This is like your offside thing. You don't get a trophy for nearly winning it, do you?
No, you don't. But I think the fact that Klopp could come from the Bundesliga, playing a certain style of football, bring it to the Premier League, and then modify it and evolve enough, and do it at a club where, again, they don't have like the financial advantage in the same way that some of these other clubs do. I think it's pretty remarkable. But I'm going to say my overrated manager is Gary O'Neill, so I'll get my own back on him.
Overrated Gary O'Neill?
Yeah, I'd say a tad. Yeah.
Oh.
I would say, yeah. His Monday Night Football appearance did wonders for his his reputation.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
Like the team that he has is good enough. Should be slightly higher on the table, I think.
I mean, I was being mainly facetious, but I think that I think the underlying numbers for both of his season, they've overperformed that. Is that because he's getting something out of them that we can't replicate in the models? Maybe, but I'd maybe say David Moyes. But I mean, I came on this very podcast earlier in the season and was quite critical of Moyes, and the second half of the season has been quite poor from West Ham. But I think there's a lot of people who like rate Moyes very highly, and I don't know. I feel as though football's maybe moved on a bit since that kind of approach has been workable.
Right. Two more quick ones.
Mm-hmm.
Worst signing?
Calvin Phillips.
Oh, poor Calvin.
Sorry,
Phillips.
I do feel sorry for him.
Yeah, that's.
Mason Mount. Maybe.
These are mean. These are a bit mean.
No.
These.
Best signing then?
Yeah, I mean, probably Declan Rice, isn't it?
Rice. Yeah.
Kudus.
Oh, what a player!
Ooh, you've not made that noise in a few years.
Oh, I love that. I love Mohamed Kudus.
That's a very German commentator noise, that.
And finally, the funniest moment of the season. This is going to show how evil you are.
Yeah, so do you remember Raheem Sterling's free kick against Leicester? I remember watching that on a bus and just burst out laughing.
Yes.
Because they gave it the big build-up, right? And it was so, and then the fans started booing. And I know it's evil, but yeah.
It was a Rosetta, wasn't it?
Of course, football is very serious and never funny. But I did chuckle when I watched the Hibs. Do you know the Hibs player take the free kick? Plant it on the forehead of one of his teammates from about 2 feet.
Oh, and it knocked out the other dude.
Bounced off the other dude and then hit the original guy again. So
fantastic.
That was quite good.
Yeah. You want something random like that. I like that. Okay, that is it for our weekend previews for the season. I just wanted to mark your card, Tim, because I did make a promise, didn't I, at Christmas that I would never
Yes, you did.
mention. I didn't, did I?
Yes, you did.
I didn't mention it.
Well done.
Thank you very much. Thank you to you, Tim, for your
Should we
season's
explain
work.
that or not?
No, we can't say it, can we?
Well, me and John can.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't say.
It was put in ball on the end of every manager's name to describe their playing style.
Yeah.
We haven't done that for a while now.
Didn't do it. We've moved on. We've evolved.
We have.
We've evolved. And John, thank you very much to you for all your sterling work this season. And thank you all for listening throughout the campaign. Make sure you tune in to the Athletic FC podcast on Monday, because we will have reaction to the final day with Io as Arsenal win 5-0 and Manchester City lose 3-1 at home against... imagine. We will see. Maybe there will be twists and turns. Whatever happens, for the final time this season, have a great weekend, and thank you very much for listening and watching on YouTube.
If you want to watch more episodes of the show, please subscribe to the channel. We'll be joined by the likes of David Ornstein, Matt Slater, Adam Crafton, Carl Anker, and plenty more through the season. If you'd like to listen to the episodes in full in audio form, search The Athletic FC wherever you get your podcasts from.